Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name's Sandman, and I'll be the primary presenter today of our webinar on Microfocus or modern alternatives. I would also like at this time to introduce, for those who just joined, my co-presenter, Alexey.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Adam.
Hello. This webinar is going to be covering the Inflectra alternatives to the Microfocus platform. We'll be covering the three different tools, and we'll include some slides, an overview, and the live application demo. Everything you see today is being recorded, so if for any reason you can't, may stay for the whole time, or a colleague couldn't make it, don't worry, there will be a recording that will be made available on our YouTube channel. If you have questions, please write them in the questions box in the GoToWebinar side panel. We will get to them at the end of the presentation. So in the meantime, sort of sit back, relax, enjoy your cup of coffee or afternoon beverage, whatever time of day it is for you, and we will get going. So with that, let's minimize those. And okay, great. So in today's agenda, we'll first of all be talking a little bit about an overview of the market and how things have changed. We'll then introduce you to Inflectra, the company, and our products, specifically focusing on Spyro Team, our application lifecycle management solution, Rapise, our functional testing tool, and lastly, load testing, which you can do with our remote launch connector and the popular open source JMeter application. After that, we'll then be talking about how you can migrate from Microfocus, and then we have time for questions. So first of all, a little bit of an overview of the industry. And in the last 3 to 4 years, there has been a sea change on a variety of fronts. The key companies that we typically have seen in the market, principally Microfocus, well, as it was known now, HP originally, and before that Mercury, they have a large heritage in the QA space. Test Director, Quality Center, LoadRunner, and QTP/UFT. Those tools have been around since I got involved in software testing and development, oh my God, 20 years ago. And they have been the mainstay for many organizations. But due to a variety of reasons, they're starting to fall out of favor. The maintenance and support has not been where they should be. The cost has gone up. And overall, the industry has moved to more modern and more open platforms and technologies. And so we're going to talk about some of the alternatives that we have. But regardless of what we have, we are seeing a lot of customers that have those solutions looking for lower cost of ownership and more modern alternatives. In addition, some of the other players that we saw, IBM, Silk, Borland, that also had a larger presence in the market, they've also seemed to be moving away as well. So it's a big opportunity for companies that have QA practices as they move to Agile and DevOps to reevaluate their tool chains, and people are looking for more modern tool chains that can give you a strong QA foundation, but better integrate with CI platforms, better integrate with DevOps, and are more Agile focused. And so we're going to give you an overview today of the Inflectra platform, which we believe is a market-leading platform for managing the quality and lifecycle of your software applications. So a bit about the company. Inflectra, welcome. If you've not heard of us before, if you are a customer or if you've used us in the past, welcome back. We believe that a company's mission and its core values are really important, and that drives everything that is what we're about. And so we have 4 really important core values that we believe in, and we focus them under the idea of great products, great team, great workplace, and great community. And particularly the first one I think is very relevant for this presentation, building for our users, not for investors. One of the reasons why I think we're having this conversation is in many times you have these great products that people rely on, like Test Director back in the day, Quality Center, UFT, that were market leading. They were the first in the industry to provide that kind of functionality. But over the years, through a variety of acquisitions, the vision gets diluted and the products, unfortunately, are not maintained. So we have a core value. The number one is building a product that's for you, our users, whether you're a customer or a future customer. You are who we build these products for. It's not for Wall Street. It's not for Gartner. It's not to fit into some vision of the magic quadrant. We want to build these tools that are actually usable by our actual customers for real use. And that means that what we're going to build is going to be usable, it's going to be powerful, and it's going to be affordable. And then the other 3 core values are important for us. We believe also we want to be around here to support you. So we want to build a good team that's going to be here. It's going to support you. If you have problems, you get support. It's not going to take multiple days just to get an email back. We want our staff to be around in the long term so that they can be the same people you've worked with for many years. And if you've ever worked with us, you'll know that many of the people you interact with from a support or sales standpoint, will be people you've potentially worked with 10 years earlier. So that great workplace is a way to have community and continuity. And then lastly, we believe that as a company and an organization, we have a commitment to our community, to the countries around the world, to people around the world that we sell into. And so we actually have a lot of programs to help people get into technology, internship programs, education programs. And we feel these 4 values are really important to us, and explain why we're passionate about what we do beyond the actual software. To give you an idea of the company, we've been around since 2006, so that's basically 15 years now. We've got about 80,000 users and about 5,000 companies worldwide. And as I mentioned, we focus on our customers primarily, not investors. And we are global, even though we're headquartered here in the Washington, D.C. area of the US. We have people in other countries. Alexey's from Europe. We have salespeople working around the clock in different time zones, India, East Asia, Australia, you name it, we have people there. And we also believe in an agile approach. We live that ourselves. We release typically our products once a month for the most part, and major releases every 2 to 3 months with minor updates every month in between. And we do that for both our cloud and our on-premise customers. We also have data where people need them. Data privacy has become a huge issue. We have data centers in different regions: North America, Europe, India, Asia Pacific, and Australia. And one key aspect is that we designed it in a way that the data in that region stays in that region. So if you need to have data resident in India or in Canada, we can do that for you. Also, we support on-premise products. Many of our competitors are phasing out on-premise software. We have a long-term commitment to both cloud and on-premise. So whatever deployment works for you, we have you covered. Just here's a list of some of our customers, a variety of different industries, literally every industry you can imagine. Europe, Asia, Americas, Africa as well is growing fast as well. And we have a global partner network. So if you need services beyond that which we can provide ourselves, we have a robust and geographically and industry diversified partner base who can provide consulting, training, solution integrations, and various other services that go with our products. Okay, so that's a little bit about the company at a high level. Just to quickly point out why we are different and how we are different. We believe in harmony. That's our key mission statement, bringing harmony to software development and software testing. We do that in 3 ways. One is across disciplines, one is through simplicity, and one is across ecosystems. So, and just to elaborate on those a little bit, disciplines means we build software for developers, testers, and managers. We want software that a developer will want to use, a tester is going to want to use, and managers will love the team using and will get good information themselves. If we don't build for those different communities, people won't use the software. Simplicity is important as well, and simplicity doesn't necessarily mean simple. Simplicity for us means it's designed with good processes in mind. It's got sensible defaults. So when you start using the tools, they're set up the right way to help you get going. And actually, so the complexity is removed by the fact we've actually built in processes into the system. You don't need 10 plugins to do one task. And then lastly, across ecosystems. Today, I'm going to be showing you 3 of our tools. We integrate with a variety of different platforms. So for example, if you want to use different automation tools or different load testing tools other than the ones we're going to show today, you can do that as well. And Rapise, our automation tool, works with Azure DevOps and other Microsoft tools. And so whatever tools you choose from us, you're not locked into us like Microfocus typically used to do. So today we're going to be looking at Spyro Team, Rapise, and JMeter. And JMeter being run through our remote launch connector. Spyro Team is our application lifecycle management tool, similar to a Microfocus ALM. Rapise is our test automation tool, similar to UFT. And then JMeter is what we recommend for load testing, that we do also support some other load testing tools as well. And it all fits together like this. You basically have Spyro Test or Spyro Team or SpiraPlan. Any of the 3 Spyro products acts as your central repository for test and defect management, also requirements management. And if you're using the SpiraPlan or Spyro Team editions, it also includes Agile program and project management. And then from that, you will integrate with Rapise directly. And for JMeter, you use our remote launch testing orchestration engine, which then connects to JMeter and handles the integration and the launching and result reporting back. So I'm going to be doing live demonstrations of the tools, so we don't need to worry too much about these slides. But just to give you an overview, Spyro Team is our agile planning and tracking variant of Spyro Test. We would recommend this for most customers coming from HP ALM. It actually mirrors, in many cases, the separate tools of ALM and ALM Octane. So if you liked ALM for its quality management, and you looked at Octane but felt that didn't do a lot of the QA stuff very well, but it had good agile planning boards and you liked its more modern feel. Spyro Team is essentially the two tools together. It brings you Octane and it brings you traditional ALM in one tool. It's a modern web application. It runs on all the major browsers, doesn't require IE and ActiveX like the older tools do, and it's incredibly usable. And I'll be showing you that live. Some of the main benefits would be it's modern, fast, it's cloud-based, it can be on-premise. You can literally turn it on and be ready in 10 minutes. You don't have to spend 2 hours in site admin. It runs across all browsers. It'll do agile, waterfall, and hybrid projects, and it's got cross-project reporting and program management out of the box. Finally, it also does include development aspects as well, like source code management, Git, Subversion. You can integrate different tools. It doesn't require tons of VBA scripting to do workflow management. It's all done through click and drag and drop. And it also includes some of the features that you had to buy separately from ALM, principally electronic signatures, which a lot of our life science and financial service customers want to be able to sign off test case and sign off reports and documents. And that can all be done directly in the system. And then we'll be looking at Rapise, which is our test automation tool. Unlike UFT, it doesn't require you to be a VBA expert. It's a complete codeless test automation tool that you can do all of your testing completely codeless using our Rapise visual language. It lets you do that using very simple, building a script by recording. You can compose a script using object and recognition. You can also do looping and branching and many flow constructs without any code whatsoever. If you do want to do code, you can also take any of these scriptless tests and turn it into JavaScript. And we're using modern JavaScript that's one of the most popular programming languages on the planet versus the VBA, which is a bit of a relic. And so it's a much more usable, easier to debug and easier to manage solution. And from a cost of ownership, it's much easier to find JavaScript developers these days than VBA. Some of the benefits that Rapise has would be its superior object recognition. It's got AI self-healing locators for web testing. So if your web page changes, you haven't got to go, try and re-record every single object. It will automatically adjust. It can do scriptless testing, as I mentioned, using the Rapise visual language. It's using JavaScript, and it's also DevOps ready. You can publish your Rapise tests into CI pipelines. It can run headless. It can run in Node, runs in Jenkins, pipeline, Azure DevOps pipelines, again, completely DevOps ready with pre-built packages. And then the last piece of the puzzle is I mentioned the load testing. And so for load testing, we're going to show you later on live how you integrate Spyro test and remote launch with JMeter. We'll run a simple JMeter script and we'll get the results back into Spyro test. Now, if you like what you've seen so far in terms of the functionality, the hard part is always, well, how do I get from A to B? I've got all these old tools. I want to move away. What's the process? And we'll talk about these for the two main tools. From the Test Director, Quality Center, ALM tool set, we have a migration wizard that you can see here on the screen. It's literally a point-and-click wizard. You pointed at your ALM URL. You pointed at your Spyro Team, Spyro Test, or SpiraPlan URL. You tell it which items you want to bring across, and you push the button, you get a cup of coffee, and you wait for it to finish and come back, and your entire project has been migrated. It does one whole project at a time. It brings over the requirements, the test cases, the test sets, the runs, the users, the defects, and the attachments, and all the traceability and data is linked together. So it's pretty straightforward. And that's how you would migrate your ALM projects into Spyro Team. The next part is how would I move all the automation we've done in UFT. You may have large legacy UFT projects. And for that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Alexey, who will walk us through the migration from UFT.
Thanks, Adam. So migrating from UFT to Rapise is possible, and my technical migration of text project is just a part of the task you need to do, and it's just a part of the problem. So this one is doable. So Rapise pretty well matches the feature set of UFT, so the tests implemented for UFT may be converted to the tests for Rapise and may be then used for test execution. So the next slide points to the real problem is you need to migrate the stuff. So you need to relearn from old concepts, old tool to the new one. And here Rapise is a really good choice because it uses most of the same concept as UFT actually uses. So there is no revolutionary change, it's evolutional. And we have similar concepts implemented with fresher and more robust technologies for today. So it's shorter, simpler, and easier to use overall. The next slide covers the situation when we have an existing project. In this case, the conversion is a whole process because usually the project is big. You have library files, you have scripts, you have Visual Basic scripts, and all of these contain some specific logic, and it all needs to be converted. And it's possible we have automatic conversion solution. It requires some tuning, but after it's tuned, it may convert like 90% of your testing framework to Rapise testing framework. And to make you feel comfortable with this conversion, the next slide will show you what we do. We offer the training, and this training is not just when we give you a rod and a bite, and you are supposed to catch a fish. We do it all together with you. We make sure you are familiar with Rapise, you learned all these concepts, you are able to work with it. We help you to do migration, we help you to set up the test framework, and we help you to do the conversion of your current tests. So you are all covered to move from the older technology to new one, to Rapise. That's it for the conversion part.
Okay, great. So the next thing I'll be doing is a live demonstration of the 3 products, and then we'll be handing over to Alexey to do a deeper dive. So let me go switch out of PowerPoint. And this is always in a demo, the risky part where things can go wrong. So we'll have some fun. Or you'll have some fun. So this is Spyro Team, first of all. So what we'll do quickly is give you an overview of Spyro Team first, and then I'll be showing you the integration of Rapise and JMeter. So this is Spyro Team, and it's in some ways it's got some of the same concepts as ALM. So in the main navigation that you can see right here, we have what are called products. So for example, library information system is a product, sample empty product 1 and 2, and demo product and digital banking and various other things you see here. Those are all products, and those would be corresponding to what in ALM you'd call a project. We can roll this up into a program, like sample program. That's similar to what ALM would call a domain. However, we also have a level above that. For example, core services, we call that a portfolio. And that's something that you don't actually have. And so we can do an additional level of aggregation for your very large installations. And when we put all those together, we have an enterprise view where you can actually see all of your products, all of your programs, all of your portfolios in one master view, where you can see what is the schedule, what is the progress. And when we talk about progress, everything in Spyro is requirements driven. Requirements drive your tests, requirements drive your development activities. And so everything is driven from that requirement standpoint. What is the progress? What is the completion? And also, how does that compare to our schedule? Are we completing the work at a faster rate than the schedule? Are we on track? Or as in this first portfolio, we're actually behind, which would not be good. Another thing that Spyro does have is DevOps integration. We tie into things like Jenkins and TeamCity and other build tools. So we have DevOps information right here across in the dashboards. We also have enterprise risk management. And risks are not just simply a defect type that we bury in the bug tracker. There's a whole risk management section, which includes support for ISO and FMEA processes, and gives you exposure calculations and elevates risks right up to the top. And there's a master schedule view where you can drill down and see what is the progress of all my projects. So you have a robust program and portfolio management system right out of the box. And in terms then of the actual products, if we compare ourselves to what you would get in ALM today, as I mentioned, Spyro Team and SpiraPlan are giving you effectively ALM and ALM Octane together, plus a whole bunch of other functionality. I can't do a deep demo of Spyro Team because it would take probably half an hour by itself. We do have webinars where we do just Spyro Team only webinars, so please look out for those. But just to give you, again, a flavor of what you can see, we have integrated dashboards at the product level, which cover the 3 main disciplines: the testing, planning, requirements, the development disciplines, and also then the project management. So what you're going to see here, just again, a snapshot, you'll see requirements completion, risk cubes, risk matrices. The schedule information is right here. Then you have your requirements test coverage, which is taking all of your requirements in your tests, bringing them together, burn down graphs, burn up graphs, defect counts, late finishing tasks, late starting tasks. So on this one dashboard, you've got project management, you've got quality management, and you've got DevOps and project management right here together. The other dashboards give you more focused views. If we look at some of the screens in the system, if you're coming from the ALM world, you'll be familiar with this view. It's your classic requirements management view. Requirements are listed. There's test coverage. You can link requirements to test cases. This is a lot like what ALM would have given you. But if you want an agile view, guess what? You can click one box, and now you have an agile view where you have user stories, you have backlogs, you have Kanban boards, you've got work in progress limits. You can see all the information you need in an agile view right here in the system. And these are the same requirements we saw before. They're just now available in an agile view. You can see user stories, you can see the tasks that go with it, and you can see the test cases right here on the board. And we can see we've even got an example Kanban limit right here. And then lastly, we do have document views and other views that aren't even in ALM. For example, the requirements document view, which your BAs will like because it actually brings all of the requirements information to the forefront and is essentially giving you a doors-like view right here in the same tool. So from a requirements management standpoint, you're going to get everything in ALM plus everything in Octane plus everything in a real full-blown requirements management tool with baselining, version control, history tracking. Another thing we have, which we think is relatively powerful and unique, is the fact that you can do document management within Spira. So if you're looking at a wiki tool or a Confluence kind of environment, you don't need that. We have full document management in the system. You can upload documents, version them, link them to requirements, and you can also do track BDD files. You can write Markdown and rich text. All that can be done right here in the tool. So again, it replaces a lot of the tools that you have to buy separately from Microfocus. On the QA side, we have a full test management system, which again matches many ways the features you would be familiar with from ALM, except it's more modern and easier to use. You've got test folders, you've got test cases, you can drag and drop, you can show different fields, you can filter by release. If you click on one of them, we support parameterized test cases just in the same way you'd be familiar with. Rich text editing is throughout the system. You go down here, this is my test case. It's got 5 steps. The first step is actually a parameter where we include a shared step and we can link to that. So equivalent to template test cases. We also support parameterized data as well. So you can have different parameters and different test cases. We'll talk about automation shortly, but this is also where you will store and manage your automated test cases. Before we jump into automation, just to quickly mention, we also have a full test set management where you can manage test sets. That's where you will orchestrate the different test cases for your different testers. Manual and automated tests get orchestrated here. Manual test cases you would assign to humans. They run it here. Results get logged in the system, all done through the user interface. We'll talk about automation when I get back in a second. We also do have test configurations where you can manage the test data right here in Spira and track different versions of data and have, for example, I want to run the same test over different browsers, different operating systems, and I want to pass that data to my test set. You can define these data grids and then use those in your testing. Also, as I mentioned, we do have it's a full lifecycle tool. So we do support integration with source code management. When you're doing testing and you want to find out why something failed, you can look here and track the code, track the version history, and see the differences. Maybe the developer didn't actually make a change. They said they did. There's no change. That's why maybe the bug came back or they reverted something. But it brings developers and testers onto the same sheet of music. Back to our idea of harmony. It's really important that everyone's working together. So we have developers, testers, and managers all working in the same system. So that's a bit of an overview of Spira. Again, I could take another half an hour to go through all the features, but I now want to move us on to the test automation side. So you've got your test cases, you've got your requirements. You now want to do some automated testing. This is our sample application. And let me launch Rapise. I guess I must have closed it earlier. No problem. There we go. And with Rapise, what you want to do, close some tabs down. There we go. It can be used with or without Spira. Move my camera out of the way. And if we go into the settings, I've already hooked it up to Spira test right here. I give my machine a name, just make sure the connection is good. It's good, hit save. And what we'll do is we're going to create a new test. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to be testing this sample application. And let's go ahead and do create new test. And I'll pick live information system. That's one of the Spira sample projects. I'm going to go in here to functional tests. I'm going to add a new test case. Sample Rapise test for webinar. Create that. I'm doing web. As I mentioned in the original remarks, Rapise is a full platform tool. It can test desktop apps, it can do mobile apps, web apps, and it can do REST and SOAP APIs. For this short demo, I'll be doing web, but we can use the exact same tool for mobile testing, iOS and Android, for desktop apps, and also for APIs as well. I'm going to use Firefox, but we can play back and record in different browsers. I'm going to use the scriptless language today, but we can also do JavaScript, as I mentioned. All right, so that's created. Close these down. This is the Rapise test editor. This is where all the test information is going to go. I'd just like to show you on the side, we have a new toolbox we added recently. So for long-time Rapise users, you'll see this and go, oh, what's that? Well, this new toolbox we have, it's a way to make it much easier for new users to get going. It's got handy hints. So if you want to do something like, open a browser, define a variable, all these things, the help is pre-built now into the system, and you can drag these directly into the test window, and it will actually add the right test object for you. So again, trying to make test automation more accessible. But we're just going to do a simple record today, so I can just hit the record button. On the bottom right of my screen, you'll see the recorder right here. I'm going to go in here now and log in. And I'll do it slowly. Get rid of my password manager. Like that. Log in. I also want to verify that I logged in correctly. So I'm going to add a checkpoint. I use the verify button. I move the mouse right over here. Verify that. Text. Okay. Go in here. Create a book. Adam's book. Changed it to historical fiction. Insert. Log out to get back to my starting point and hit finish. And that's a simple test. I'll append that to the end. There we go. Completely scriptless. If you wanted to see it in JavaScript, you can go in here and you can copy that and say, I'd like to see the JavaScript version. You can always go get that and put that in a function over here if you really want to. That's the JavaScript version, so it's fully interoperable. I'm not going to use that. I'll run this one. And now to play back the test, all you do is hit the play button and it will play back in Firefox. So let's just play and bring up the browser. And I'm not touching the keyboard right now. See, my hands. And I'm running it from Rapise directly, just because, again, because I'm interested in time for today's webinar. But normally I would save this back into Spira, run it from Spira, and you see all the reporting back in Spira. That's a simple pass case, and that is a automated functional test, just doing a simple login to a website and back out again. Great. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is load testing. So how do we do load testing? Well, load testing, we're using a tool called JMeter, which is probably the most popular open source load testing tool. And we have a plugin called Remote Launch. And Remote Launch is the tool that actually does the launching. And I've set this up ahead of time. So I've gone into Spira and I went into, and if I go into my performance test folder, you see we've got two test cases that I've written. They're very similar, they just point to different tests. So what I did is I went in, created a test case. This test case can be linked to a requirement, so you can use it to have requirements, non-functional requirements, and those will be linked to this test case. And all you need to do from an automation standpoint is you choose the appropriate plugin, and we're using JMeter. I put the path to the JMeter test, and then I hit save, and that's all I have to do here. Now, you may wonder, well, where's that actually live? So, okay, let's go look on the actual test machine. So over here on this test machine, close Notepad, this is the machine that runs JMeter. And if I run JMeter quickly, I can show you what my test looks like. And I'm not a JMeter expert, so apologies for the simpleness of my load test, but it's a simple load test. If I go in here and open recent, I've got one that's designed to pass and one that's designed to fail. What it actually does is it logs into an instance of Spira, and it logs in with the sample user and password. It does this 5 times. It does it with 5 users. I think it does it 5 times with 5 users to create some load. After it logs in, it goes to the home page. And then I basically do a check. How long does it take to bring up the home page? And in the passing case, I said, anything under a second is good. And that actually will pass. If, on the other hand, I went to my one that marked as fail, I did a simple test where I took the exact same test, cloned it, gave it a different file name, and all I did is change it from 1 second to 1 millisecond, which typically is faster, is not as, the application is about 30 milliseconds, so that's a little too fast. So that will fail. So I set that up ahead of time. And if I go to my system tray, I just need to run remote launch, which is right here. And there's remote launch. I've configured this ahead of time. You set remote launch, you point it to your JMeter installation directory, you tell this instance of remote launch how to connect to Spyro, what the URL, login, and password is. You give your machine a unique token so it knows where to run. For example, this machine is called Yaz, my machine is called TARDIS, and so if I ran a Rapise test, I want to do it on TARDIS. For a JMeter, I want to do it on Yaz. So every machine can have different tools installed, and that's how it knows which one to run it on. Okay, let's go back to my test set. I already set this up. And what I did here is I've set up a sample load test. It's a sample test set. Just like ALM, we have test sets, and they can be manual and automated. This one's set for automation. It's got 2 test cases in it. It's got my 2 JMeter tests, one with the second, one with the millisecond. And I'm just going to go ahead and say not started. That'll force it to run again. And since we don't want to wait too long on the demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the machine and say, check now. Normally, remote launch polls every 2 minutes, same as Rapise, but I don't want to wait 2 minutes, so I'm just going to tell it to try now. Okay, it's found 2 test cases to run. It's firing up JMeter. Now, JMeter, unfortunately, is not as visually interesting as Rapise, because with Rapise, we actually launch the browser and we click around and we actually see the actions. With JMeter, it's sending HTTP traffic directly to the web server. So unless you're running something that intercepts the traffic, you're not going to see much. So we'll just wait a second. It will say in progress as it's running. And when it's finished, it will say done. In fact, I've actually run this before. So while it's running, I can even go here and look at the previous results. So what we'll do is we will save a little bit of time and not wait for it to finish. We'll look at the one I ran for yesterday. And if we look at that, we have 1 pass and 1 fail. If I look at the pass case, you'll see we ran JMeter. We had the 1 second, and it says we had the assertion was false. It didn't fail. It met the 1 second, and it therefore marks it as a pass. If I go to the fail, it will say, oh, look, 1 second, 1 millisecond. That's not what we had. It's 31 milliseconds. And so you see the actual timings. And that's from each of the iterations of that test. I think we did maybe 10 iterations or 10 VUs. And so each one is taking longer than 1 millisecond. And that's a sample of a failure. And it's a very simple test. Usually it's a much longer report than that with lots of different assertions again, just giving it really simple for today. But that's a simple use of simple navigation through Spyro Team to show you how you use it. Went through, did a quick automation test with Rapise, and then I went through a load test with JMeter. And as you can see, it's actually logged the next 2 results. So it did work. It's pretty much the same as yesterday, except it's maybe a few milliseconds off, and that's the one from today. And when you run a test in Spyro and you go to the test set, you can always see the run history. So the great thing is it archives all your history of tests. So if it's a manual test or an automated test, it's going to archive that right here in the system. And for things like Rapise that are functional tests, you're going to get usually screenshots and what passed and what failed. For a load testing, it's going to be mostly around the SLAs and did it respond fast enough. Okay, so with that, I'm going to now go and hand it back to Alexey for a deep dive into some of the features in Rapise.
Well, if we want to dive deeper into Rapise, we should first mention that Rapise, in comparison with UFT, is 90% feature compatible. So it contains mostly all the same that UFT contains, but in UFT you may see it is something that is shipped as plugins. So you need separate license for some of these things. In Rapise you get everything in one package. And in Rapise, it is more condensed, and this difference in 10% mostly due to the technologies that are outdated, such as Adobe Flash and Adobe Flex. We had it in the past, but we removed them from Rapise because they are outdated. No one currently supports them. So we try to keep Rapise dense and tiny, and it's important, and you will see why. So on the next slide, you may see the major benefits that lead to other benefits of Rapise. First of all, in Rapise, we only use open data formats whenever possible. And it's JSON, it's XML, it's Excel files, it's JavaScript files. Majority of data files are of this format. And this makes all Rapise tests friendly with source control tools such as Git or SVN or whatever else you have. It makes it easier to maintain branches, to merge them, and to make them a part of your development projects, CI/CD pipelines, and everything else. The package of Rapise, the whole package of Rapise is about 200 megabytes, and usually it takes about 2 minutes to download and install. Specifically, it's important when you have many virtual machines where you run tests. So you may ramp up new VM with Rapise in like 3 minutes, run your tests, and close it. We use it in some DevOps environments. So that's why keeping this small size and all-in-one is important and useful. Next item that it's worth to mention is the next slide. We have this Rapise visual language that you already have seen during the demo. It's actually designed to be full-featured language while it's completely visual. So it has loops, it has variables. You may do some really flexible things. It is integrated with JavaScript, so sometimes you may write some specific thing as a functions and call it if you prefer. And this language itself is designed for a purpose. First purpose is maintainability, so the tests are easy to maintain. You may run any single line alone without running everything else. If you develop a data-driven test, you may define the data right here in REL or link to external data, and you can also use the features for maintainability to just, for example, use one row of the data or few rows of the data. It's all well designed with Rapise visual language. The next slide covers another important feature of Rapise ecosystem, is that it uses JavaScript under the hood. So Rapise itself is like 80% implemented in JavaScript. You may actually step into Rapise core engine and see how it's developed. You may step it into any library. We try to keep is as open as possible. So again, 80% of the logic, and this covers most of the actual testing logic, is something that is open. And since we added Node.js as another script engine in Rapise in the beginning of this year, we also opened the door to some technologies such as Cucumber.js and NPM. So you may utilize all these awesome NPM package, and every API or every technology around currently have some NPM module, so it makes it easier to use it in your test when needed. Also, Rapise relies on some technologies such as Selenium, Appium, and it's an option that you may just switch on. And this way, we are inside the friendly open source environment with all current technologies that evolve, and Rapise evolves with them. Next slide is covering one of the important results of what I said before. So this tiny size, this open data formats make it easier to integrate it with DevOps and CI/CD environments. So you may run tests from Jenkins, or in Azure DevOps, you may run it on your virtual machine, or you may run them on virtual machine that is created just for executing single test and then destroy it. So all these are possible due to use of Git, due to open formats and the easy ways to integrate Rapise in your environment. So I hope you saw the major differences and benefits in what I said so far. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Alexey. So just to wrap up before we go into questions, I like, again, everything you saw in this presentation will be available on the video. There are many different reasons why we believe that Spyro Team is a better solution for you than ALM and even ALM Octane. Brings them both together and includes modern agile practices, cross-discipline working, all in one easy-to-use system. We've shown you how you can use Rapise to get an integrated set of functional and load testing tools integrated with Spyro. And we've also talked about why Rapise is superior to UFT, gives you a lower cost of ownership solution that's more modern and future looking. And then lastly, if obviously it all sounds good, but you have to get from where you are today to where you want to be. We've also talked about the automated migration options from both UFT and ALM to our platform. With ALM to Spyro Team, it's completely automated, and from the UFT to Rapise, I think it's like 90% automated, and then there's some manual tuning afterwards. One thing I'd like to remind everyone before we get into Q&A is there is a download, a handout that's provided with this webinar. So while you're logged in to GoToWebinar, please can you grab the handout? If anyone has any problems getting this, just let us know at the marketing channel, and our head of marketing can send that out to you. But there is a handout that should be provided. So thanks for attending today's webinar. This recording will be made available on our YouTube channel, and I would also like to advertise we have a webinar coming up, Alexey, on Cucumber. Is that right, Gherkin?
Yep, it would be about Cucumber.js.
And when is that?
It's on April 26th.
Excellent. So if you want to come to learn about that, April 26th, we have another webinar on Cucumber.js. Feel free to join that. Otherwise, thanks so much for attending today. Have a great rest of the day, and appreciate you attending and making time for us.